You don't start things and not finish them. You don't quit. There's nothing that comes out of quitting besides knowing that you didn't finish. We finish everything. You start it, finish it. If you're going to do it to try to be the best. Not to be better than other people, but to be the best for you. You grind hard so you can play hard. The work you put in will pay off. It could be a year, it could be 30 years, but you keep grinding. Welcome to Big Reptile Talk. Welcome to the podcast. This is Big Reptile Talk. Before we start, make sure you show support to Venomproof Cages, Ozzy Boyd's, Redline Science, and the Reptile Report. All three amazing supporters of the channel. Today was kind of a spur of the moment. I'm super excited. When this man says, let's do it, you do it. This is a legend in the building. I'm super excited. We have Mr. Kevin from Nerd. How you doing today, sir?
Hi, how are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Super excited to have you on here and just kind of pick your brain a little bit. Before we even start, man, I got to ask, how long have you been in the hobby?
Well, I mean, is that from my initial really keeping anything?
Yes.
I started for my 12th birthday, which was like over 150 years ago. It seems. I got a boa constrictor. So prior to that, it was all just, like garter snakes and, milk snakes and black racers and stuff like that. But I got my first boa constrictor and I named it Rodan. And then I got a female later. I called it Nadine and all that. But I started, like, officially, I was keeping and breeding animals, like, out of my house. But I decided to leave my job in 1994. I did electronics. So I came out of the high-tech field. I did, electronics and computers. So I got a couple degrees in that. And I was like, I'm going to go start a reptile business. And I was already doing it out of my home. And so I officially, I think 1994, I really kind of jumped in.
Right. So you've been in the business since 1994. That's crazy. So let's go back pre-nerd. You said you were doing electronics?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, I worked in a research and development laboratory, and I have like this weird kind of mind. I like really technical things, and I like to solve problems, and I'm very very detail oriented on some things, I would say. So I really like to be pretty analytical, and I like to build things. I'm very good with my hands. I'm always building things, and I now I've taken that where I have to like take care of all like the my building requirements. So if it's working on vehicles, all sorts of, HVAC, electrical, all that different stuff. Plus I build cages, and I'm constantly fabricating things.
That is incredible. Now, I got to talk about Nerd. Did you have any idea Nerd would become what it is today? Y'all were one of the biggest.
I was like, I knew I needed to come up with a name that was like kind of clever. Or something, whatever. So I think it started out with, so we're in New England, and it was like, I was selling reptiles out of my house, but I was breeding reptiles, but I was into everything. And I was like, so I came up with this little idea, like NE reptile, like I deal with any reptile, or I'll sell any reptile, that kind of thing. So I was like, any reptile. Then I go, well, if I put a D on it, then it's like Nerd. And I go, New England Reptile Distributors. And at first I was kind of like, yeah, it's stupid, but I just kind of stuck to it. And I certainly had no idea at all. You really can't, because there's so many people that get into reptiles or try to even pursue the hobbyist dream of actually doing it more so for your living. And they'll get into it, and they might experience a time where things are okay, and you're like, okay, this is good. They you know, maybe they bred something really good, or they've had some sales or whatever. And that, the good times are not what defines you. It's the bad times. And it's when you've made the mistake, or you've got some precious animal and you've killed it because you're stupid, like me, or, you know, just the you know, the luck of the draw. Things just don't work well. And to be able to endure all of the negative times and reinvent yourself, and like, it's so easy to want to get out. I can name, you know, so many extraordinary times where like something goes wrong and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think like that periodically. I'm like, I just don't want to do this anymore because I'm so hurt. But I stuck to it because of the animals. And I can't imagine my existence without being, you know, just animal driven, just the love for the animals, because you lose yourself in the wonderment of these really unique animals that are still very hard to figure out.
Right, right, right. I agree. Now I gotta ask this. You know, I have often found myself referring back to your videos if I had a question or if I needed help with something. So I say that to say you have so much knowledge. Do you feel like you're self-taught or did you have a mentor?
No, I'm self-taught. Yeah, it's I guess it all probably, it started, my weird behavior started as being a kid and playing with bugs. And I took a like any kind of animal, bug, animal, whatever. I always had this, I just took such a strong interest in them that I think the bugs are what kind of developed my way of thinking. Because when you look at a bug, it's so not like humanity or the pets that we keep. And so they give you almost nothing. But I was so compelled to be interested in these animals. So I would really just try to figure things out. And then as I went up, you know, into vertebrates, you know, I was very much, I'm a fish guy. I love fish, African cichlids, all sorts of just, you know, fish stuff. And I was really, really into that. And then it, you know, it progressed into snakes. But it's because I look at them perhaps differently than maybe the standard hobbyist. And I did that early on, and I started picking up little nuances, and they were really unique to me. It really took somebody like Rafi Martinez. You know, Rafi does ball pythons. He was up here. He was MA Balls, but then he's gone down to Georgia. And Rafi came to me and said, I want to film you or whatever. But he would point out like my weird relationships with animals or what he thought was just really unique. And he would point it out, and he caused me to reflect on maybe I was doing something a little bit differently, because I wasn't stepping back and seeing how I view these animals, and maybe if am I different or I'm unique. So he got me to start thinking a little differently, and then I started showing it to the rest of the world. But you know, if you talk to people like Brian Bartek, Jay Brewer, you know, Robin Markland, you know, there's a lot of really, really talented people in this hobby industry that they might look at me and say, Kevin, you're not like, you know, the standard fare. And they will help me realize that. And when they help me realize that, I tend to be more compelled to try to show this to the rest of the world, because I don't realize that I'm, I guess, different. So, and I just learned all this weird stuff. And
Right.
I you know, I could easily go off on a tangent. I'll stay in line there.
Hey, that's fine. That's fine. We love it. We just happy you giving us that knowledge, man. I'm such a big fan of your channel. I love when you're holding the venomous snakes. I mean, what's going through your mind when you have, you know, Lilith, or when you like you just put out a video of you literally rubbing. I want to say it was a
Water
water moccasin.
moccasin.
You're rubbing
That
his chin and patting it on his back. What's
so
going through
that's
your mind when
So
you're
her
messing with
name
your
is,
venomous snakes?
okay, so I'm particularly really good at this kind of stuff because I think once you understand how these animals behave, and it's very, very important when you want to socialize an animal. I don't care if it's a chipmunk, because I do things with like chipmunks and stuff like that. But I look at animals in modes. And if you can get your brain into this, so we have sleep mode, we have maybe feeding mode. You know, you open up the cage and the snake's coming at you and it wants to eat. Then we have fear mode. So fear mode is where they're being defensive. Then we have thinking mode. It's key. Learn your modes, and what you want to do is fast track that animal to thinking mode. So if I play with the bearded dragon and I'm sitting there watching TV and I'm petting him and he's shutting his eyes and I'm rubbing his face all along his cheek, I know that that feels good if I'm being, sweet and gentle to that animal, and I work on that. But that animal's in thinking mode. It just naturally doesn't want to be in this defensive fear mode. Whereas if I pick up a reticulated python, a mangrove snake, a water moccasin, they often go to this fear mode. And when they go to the fear mode, that's where my interaction with them can actually be bad. And imagine the animal is recording you. It's video recording everything that's going on. And if I go and interact with that animal and I terrify it, or I further justify that animal should be fearful of me, it records this experience and it's a bad experience. So I gently will try to get out of the fear mode and get into the thinking mode. So Tabitha is a water moccasin that I got her for $75, and the guy said that she's terrible. And she's just like a psycho. And he was just happy, just take this thing. So I start this behavior where you go into the cage, and you can enter the cage, and maybe just very, very subtle little entrance, and you don't push her where she freaks out. You just go into the cage, and you might do something where she smells you and she's holding her ground and she's flicking her tongue and she's smelling you. And then I leave the cage. And that's a thread. I don't know if you've seen this whole thing about threads, and it is something that I made up, and I would say it's unique to myself, but it's also given me a great mind, or a way into the minds of these animals. Because if I do these little episodes, it can be 10 seconds. I build a positive thread. The animal records that, and then you'll notice pretty quickly, if I follow that up with more of these little positive experiences, within days, you'll start noticing the behavior of the animal is starting to change. And I go a little further, but I try to just not push it too far. Because remember, collectively, these little threads, these little positive experiences build a rope. And I'm trying to do that. So what the animal's doing is it's learning to trust me. And it's learning that I'm not a bad thing in its environment. And its brain is changing. And they recognize you. They know you by smell, sight, all these different things. And one thing that I think that has really helped me is I've realized that these animals are truly more intuitive, and they're more intelligent than we ever thought they were. And it's so ignorant for us to because our brains we don't understand this animal. It's so uniquely different to us that what we don't understand, we might mistake as an animal not being aware, or an animal not having a capacity. And very quietly, whether I was realizing I was doing it or not, I was adjusting my behaviors, and it took other people to point that out. Like, we have somebody like Brian Barczyk. Brian Barczyk is a good friend of mine, and I have a great deal of respect. And, anybody in this industry that, were to dog on Brian and say that he's not an animal lover, all animals. He doesn't understand this person, and they're clouded by the misnomers of other people due to jealousy, ignorance, mistaking something. But Brian truly loves animals. And when I get to have somebody in my life that truly loves animals, I always have a very, very strong bond with them, because we just have it. And we thrive off of each other's interest in these animals. So when Brian gives me credit and points out to me that I'm doing something unique, that is such a positive, like a really, it's like such a compliment. Like if Jay Brewer is saying, positive things about me, Jay's, I've known Jay a long time, and Jay is he's a showman. He he's just really just goes for it all. And Jay's got these videos, and snakes are trying to bite him and all this different stuff, but Jay is really good at reading animals. He's got it, so he makes it look easy, and he's laughing because, like, I do that stuff where I mean, I don't do that stuff because I need to paint these animals in a very careful light, because I'm involved with the laws. I feel that people have put so much faith in me, and just like they value me, that if I represent them, I need to be respectful to the whole community of reptile keepers, that if I'm in this position and they value me and my opinion, and then I go forward and I try to fight for the laws and I work with USARC, then I don't want to embarrass them. So I kind of behave myself a bit, and I'm not as dynamic as far as, I can go and put a video out there and, snakes trying to blast me in the face and all this different stuff. And I won't get the massive following so quickly, but I have to believe that in time, people learn who I am, but I need to just do stuff a little bit, more conservatively. And I can do all the crazy stuff easily. I read these animals, but I just don't think who I am and where I am in the industry, it would be a wise thing to do. So, but it's really nice when with other people that I really respect and have a lot of love for, or whatever, mutual admiration, and when they value anything that I'm doing as unique or extraordinary, that's a huge compliment. And I forever am always humbled by my peers.
Right. Well, Jay was on the other day. He said he spoke super highly of you, man. He's like, you're a legend. And I said, I'm gonna have to agree with you.
That's very kind. Like, because I don't even know the stuff is going on. And Jay is, he pretty much can do anything he wants to do, anything he sets his mind to do. Same thing with Brian Barchak and other people. There's really great people in our industry, and some of those people are entirely worth every bit of my praise. And then there's other people in my industry that maybe, they might even get too much credit because, of, social media or whatever, and all that different stuff. So we have all different levels. I pretty much I'm only interested in just the positive ones.
Right. You were one of my favorite breeders. You've been breeding some amazing things. So I got to ask you, this is a hot seat question. And who is one of your favorite breeders?
Who is one of my, okay. So who makes animals that make me jealous and make me like, oh, wow. I do so many different animals. I think I have to always go back to what changed my brain, which would be Dave and Tracy Barker. Dave and Tracy Barker were the people early on that set the bar super high, very accurate minded people. They came from zoos, but they also had the hobbyist thing. You know, a lot of times people that come from zoos, they act almost like elitists. And Dave and Tracy were from the zoo, so they got to deal with all the different animals, but they had this endless hobbyist engine, like just where we're fascinated so much and we want to do more and more and more and all that different stuff. So Dave and Tracy were something that really did something for me. Then even like when I was looking at pythons, like Bob Clark pretty much had like everything. When I came into the scene, he was just had it all. David Tracy Barker, Bob Clark, and I didn't have like much of anything. And what they did was they set a bar that I'm very not competitive with them, but I'm very goal oriented. So I saw the crazy things they were doing, and I just set the bar super high and just went for it, and I was able to like accomplish a lot of stuff. And the only thing that's probably unique to me is maybe a little bit the odd way that I perceive things, and I have a really strong engine. I'm really hyperactive. I have severe attention deficit disorder, and I have a lot of like I suffer from like chronic depression. So when you suffer from chronic depression, the way I've learned to deal with it is I cannot ever like settle. I can't like just sit there and be quiet. I always have to give myself more challenges, because when you are not, your brain is not challenged, I would fall into these like, little depression holes. So I learned always just give myself goals, always go on to the next thing that you don't know how to do, but you want to learn, and you try to conquer it. And that's literally been my driving force to this day.
I love that. I love that. And speaking of the Bale, man, the Bales are icons.
Yeah, you talking Mark and Kim Bell?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark and Kim Bell, they're my friends too. So Mark and Kim Bell, they did it a little differently. One thing that's really good, they incorporate family, and they've went where it was like such a hard business. There's great people like Justin Kabolka. He's my friend, really good guy. He really focused, laser sharp, and then he builds, you build a model for your fan set and your customer base. I learned to do that a long time ago, and I created that, doing that with ball pythons. And but Mark and Kim Bell just took the industrialized side of it, and that's a really hard thing to do, because you have to manage systems, you have to manage people, and you have to do this ridiculous consistency. And I'm not really too much into like the mass numbers, because that's not what drives me. I do what I do because I like to unravel like mysteries, or create something that I'm dying to make. And it's just it's a little different, but yeah, they're great at what they do, and they're highly successful.
Right. I've had Bob Clark on my podcast. He's
Yeah.
really awesome too. Now, I got to ask this. I feel like anything that you touch turns into gold. And when I say that, let's just talk about Nerd. It is so iconic. I'm kind of curious. Have you ever thought about franchising it and having nerds in different states?
No, because I struggle to manage what this is. So one of my problems is I don't manage people well. I want to manage animals, and I am a massive, truly, I cannot be more sincere about this. I'm a massive critic of myself. And I spend pretty much every waking moment dwelling on my failures and my shortcomings, not my successes. And it's nice to see you got a great smile and you're very, very sincere when you say that. And you're like, nerds this. I don't see it like that. It's it's my life. But for me to franchise, I would it's like I don't believe in myself well enough to ever think like that. It's the only thing I would want to, I guess the thing that I want to do is I want to change people's brains, and I want to change how they think and how they see these animals. I love the animals so much, and it's all nature. I'm a complete environmental freak. I love, frogs and this and that. I will, right now I'm changing my habitat outside on my property to harbor more monarch butterflies, and more spotted salamanders and pollinators and bees and all that. So I have, a total tractor, and I'm, chainsawing and changing things and turning areas that were treed into, meadow and all that, because I love these animals so much. But I want people to realize that wherever they live or whatever they're doing, they have a potential to impact nature in some kind of way. And as long as it's a positive way, by teaching people to value nature through showing off your pet ball python, but getting people to look at animals in a different light and have this empathy. Because I feel as the continuation of mankind, we're becoming so isolated from these natural places, from a rainforest, from the woods, from a field, from anything. And these animals that live there are being lost. And it's very sad for me in my short life how I've watched so many things vanish. And I love all the hobby stuff, but you got to break it down to where you live and what's happening down the street, and what animals are being challenged, and can you actually do something positive. So it all breaks down. That is more important to me ever than the success of me as far as my business, certainly my wallet. I'm not a money person, and that's a shortfall of me. I mean, I'm successful to a degree, but my success is always going to go right back into these animals, or what I'm doing, or what I'm keeping, or whatever it is. But it always goes back to animals, 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 animals. And I don't aspire to have a big giant business like model where then I can duplicate it. That's just not what I want to do. But I love to do is when I have somebody like you, and you're telling me that I was a resource or an inspiration, or I caused you to look at animals differently, or maybe got you to think about animals that are like in my heart. That, let's say I'm showing, the wonderful tokay geckos or mangrove snakes, or, monitor lizards, or the mindsets. And I'm causing you to change how you think and see that. That is, to me, is more profound than just like, hey, you have a good business model, you should go and put it in different states. My thing is care about these animals so much. I'm just a glorified hobbyist. And if I have, an inventory of animals that I'm breeding or I'm reselling, I try to make sure the animals are a good quality and try to get people to actually understand how to take care of them. So when I do sell them, they're going to have their best success. Of course, I'm fallible. As soon as you sign on a single employee to work for you, you are trying to train them to mirror your insight or your techniques. But that is a daily, if not minute by minute challenge. there's always going to be something that gets lost in interpretation, and people will always change what they're doing. Even though I've told somebody to do something, it's their perception, or it comes down to their version of it too. But I would never want nerd to be any bigger, because literally I'm nerd. And as soon as I let that go, it's just the name of a business.
Right.
Yeah. It's
I love that you put the education over the money. I love that. I love that.
It's and I and it's not like it's not like that was what I set out to do. I don't really know what I set out to do. I was breeding animals, and all I wanted to do was to be able to breed animals to get those animals that I was like, I can't wait to get this animal and try to breed it, build a bigger cage, get more of this and do that, and learn and learn and learn and learn. So now I've learned some things, but I need to teach other people about that stuff and educate them and get them to think and see differently. So that, I think, is then interpreted as, I've learned to educate. I'm the kind of person that if I'm telling somebody something and I see a value to that, and then people responding to it, and then they say these nice comments, I am like, it really helps me learn who I am and where I'm at. And I don't necessarily realize that I have this kind of effect on people just by me being me. But it's really nice and it's rewarding to see that. And that fosters further appreciation that I want to show you more. And I want to help you maybe realize, I've started doing these medical videos, and that's really exposing myself, because I'm exposing what goes on with these animals, and I'm showing you the negative. And then I'm not even running to a veterinarian. I'm showing you how I've figured out actually how to manage some of these things. And if you really think about it, I've embraced being fallible, as opposed to, I can sit here and just show all the highlights and all the positives. And what I'd be doing is I'd being fake. I don't ever want to be fake, because if I watch myself being fake and I'm listening to it, I get embarrassed. It's like, I mean, I can be fake, Donnie needs me to be maybe positive about something when I'm feeling whatever. And I have to just, you have to do some of that, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be like a whole personality that isn't really me. And so I really do appreciate when I see people responding and my insight, and they're talking about it. It causes me to want to do more of it. And that, I guess I wasn't aware of it, but I'm naturally like an educator. I can write books. I can do all these things, and I might be able to present myself in a little bit of an intellectual fashion, where I really try to break things down so it can be digestible, but not talking down to people. I just kind of just be like very, very realistic until they understand it.
I love that. I love that answer. Shout out to my friend Benji. He would kill me if I didn't ask this. He loves guitars. He loves music. He said, "Can you hold up your guitar?" And he wants to ask, "What sort of music are you interested in?"
Oh my God, I'm a total metalhead. So pretty much like thrash metal is what I like. I'm very much a musician, and so this is good. This is like when people have those little twirly things. The guitar will stop me from getting too antsy, or if you give me a snake or something, or a lizard. But I'm into, I have a band. So my problem is I've not really made my music very, I write music and I play music, everything for self whatever, but I have lots of recorded music that I just need to put it out on like SoundCloud. But we have like 2 complete albums. I have a 3rd album that I just need to complete, and I'm playing with another guy who's just a whoop ass other guitar player, a guy named Jesse Neer. And I have lots of influences, but old Megadeth, Testament, Randy Rhoads, a band called Riot. I like kind of technical, like challenging music that I'm very much into, grooves. The music largely that is of today, I'm very unimpressed with. And I really, like, so, okay, do you like rap music?
Well, hell yeah.
Okay. So I love like some older rap music, and I love, like, okay, Run DMC. Okay? But I love a song, and it, Rapper's Delight.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that song, I can listen to that song 24/7, and you can play it. I don't understand. It's because, and it's not the like the musical, like, how do you play, this chic song? It's listening to these dynamic people with it's like such a profound groove, and that flair. I am very, very drawn to that energy. And okay, so I'll show you how ridiculous I am. Do you know Crisscross, the song Jump?
Well, yeah, yeah.
That, dude, I love that song. And I like Young MC, like Bust a Move, and I love Body Count, with Ice-T.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That last album, like, I'm just, so what I'm basically doing is I'm like kind of like just giving you things that you wouldn't think that I would like. And so let me say something. So evidently I can see you have more melanin in your skin than I do, and you're better in the sun than I do. And I love that. So there's a community. Are you part of the Black Reptile Keepers community on Facebook?
I think I am.
Though dude, I had some people come up from Maryland. I didn't know anything about it, and they're Black Reptile Keepers. And I always love when we get different groups of people, different ways of life into our hobby. I love it, because for so long it was like, just, bunch of, Caucasians or whatever keeping these animals. And initially, it wasn't like you didn't have all sorts of different communities of people. And now it's become so homogenized, and I love it, because that means that you love animals. But it just seemed like, so it wasn't like that before. We didn't have the Aussie Boyds and all that different stuff. And you have to understand, I'm talking about something which, it's one of those weird things, but I'd rather talk about it. Let's say like the Black Reptile Keepers community, and I watch how these people are talking about these animals, and I love it, because it's refreshing, because we're infecting a whole other, aspect of communities. It's a different community of people that that are looking at these animals that maybe they grew up. Okay, I guess what it is, if you grow up in the city, how do you fall in love with snakes? That is, because I grew up, kind of out in the, woods and, more. So that is like, how do I get people in the city to love these animals? And I think that's really what it is. And I think it's, so if I'm Black reptile community, that like a lot of them are like, I grew up in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, and maybe there wasn't, a lot of snakes, but they are sure enough, they're into it. And boy, they into it. And it's wonderful.
I love it. I love it. We'll get back into the interview in just a second. Shout out to my dog, my buddy Iron Dog Reptiles. He says, can you explain the poison ivy line better? He has one, and does it have the chance of having calico in it?
Okay, so poison ivy. So years and years ago, I got into calico reticulated pythons. And so these were wild caught animals. They're being caught in the skin trade. Okay, so they're catching these retics, and because the animal, so the we're going to call it the phenotype. So that's the visual look of that animal is different than the standard wild retic. The trappers and the skinners saved those animals. They didn't butcher them. And then they knew that the animal was so interesting looking that they could sell it to a dealer who then would export it, obviously, to the United States in this case, and we would pay a lot of money. So I think my first calico I paid $7,500 for, and it would look just so crazy. And I started breeding, and they were generally females, and I started breeding these, and you produced hets, raised up a het male, bred it back to the female. You produced essentially normal looking retics that I thought did look a little different. And over time, as those animals started to mature, some of those animals would start changing. Okay, so it's tied in with hormones. So the poison ivy was just a different animal that was, an outstanding looking animal that I started breeding into my other retic morphs, and then ultimately got it into my I essentially got it into like the orange ghost stripe and the golden child. And ultimately, when I produced the first cow retics, I had in the background, I had some calico bred in there. And then when I started breeding that stuff back to each other, the calico would cause things to change. So anytime I had like poison ivy in the background, you'd start seeing animals that looked differently, and you'd start producing orange ghost stripes that had this weird gray on them and all this different stuff, which I would pretty much attribute to my original poison ivy calico. It was a female.
Okay. Awesome. I appreciate you answering his questions. Again, shout out to Iron Dog, man. Take care of yourself, buddy. Real quick, I got to give you a hot seat question. You're an icon in the hobby. So let's play a game. Let's say I'm a movie director and I'm making a movie. It's called The Evil Morph God. Anybody in the world who's playing Kevin, who do I cast to play you?
Oh God, that's a really good one. So does it have to be like an actor, or is it just somebody famous?
It could be anybody you want.
That's a really interesting question. See, I'm not like an egomaniac, so I'd probably say like Gollum. No, I'm kidding. No, God, who would I say? That's a really Christian Slater.
Okay.
Or Kevin White.
That Christian Slater, the Evil Morph God. I love that.
Or Kevin White, maybe. The snowboarder, something like that. But I guess you'd have to have a lot of. I'm a jokester, and I do voices, and I do like weird personalities and stuff like that. So then you could go like, somebody like Jim Carrey or somebody like that.
Bro, somebody just said that. Hold on, let me see who said that. Somebody said that, Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, because I'm pretty intense. If you generally I don't do it like on camera, but people that know me will, I'm like a monster when it comes to like being a jokester and phony phone calls and pranks and all that stuff.
Right, right, right. I love that. Now, you've been crushing it on YouTube, but y'all want to grow and reach that success that you're reaching. Can you talk to me? How good did it feel to get that YouTube plaque?
It did, because for a long time I was doing every horrible bad thing. I was like, here's my iPhone 3, and I'm like, I'm gonna go stare at a monitor lizard, and I'm gonna talk about it, and I go and post it up there, and maybe never even revisit the video ever again. And the video quality sucked and all this different stuff. And I was only doing that because of people like Rafi Martinez, and bringing front and center that I do things really differently, let's say with monitor lizards. But then eventually Donnie worked for me. Donnie used to take care of my lizards, and Donnie did not really, he's taking care of monitor lizards, and he was reliable, and he did a good job, and he's neat and clean. But he always was like, you should let me do your video stuff. And there was a long period of time where like Donnie worked for me and then didn't work for me, but he always came and told me, you should let me do your video stuff. And I was just like, okay. Finally, I was like, I wasn't really even interested. And he did it. He started doing it, and he's like, okay, we can do this, but we need to do this. And he was doing all these different things. And in the beginning, I was painfully going through the motions where I didn't really want anything to do with it. It's like, certainly filming me, he's like, dude, we got to film you. People want to see you. And I'm like, no, why do they want to see me? Because it's almost like, it's self-glorification. And my brain is so, the animals are like my focus. So it was really weird. It was really weird for me. And then now I've accepted it. Donnie's just like, people want to hear what I have to say. Even not too long ago, I would try to get my other people doing the videos, because I didn't realize that people really wanted to hear like what I had to say, I guess. And that's really naive. I like thinking about it, it's really whatever. But I just I'm not like super, I don't like have this great belief in myself. And so, and it's very humbling, because I'm just naturally not that person. I can be, you might, like, if you listen to me argue, let's say against laws, I become like maybe my best self, because I see what the challenge is, and I need to educate people or impress upon them that maybe what they think is actually wrong. And that's where I become an incredibly confident person. If I believe in what I'm saying, and if I believe that I understand a system, or I understand something, and I can argue it, I will argue like, can I swear?
Yes.
Like a motherfucker. I love to argue. If you put somebody against me, I'm a fighter. Like, if it's martial arts or if it's verbal confrontation, I will fight you terribly, as long as you stay to the facts of the argument, not, bitch out on me when I challenge you with facts, and you get, you just play all these games and you won't answer my things. I lose my mind. But I love to argue, and I lose who I am in the fact that I love to argue. And I want to educate and change. If somebody's got something wrong, I need to fix it.
Right, right, right. I love that, man. I love that. You're just so big on education. I'm not gonna keep you much longer. I got a few more questions, and then we'll be done. This is one in a lifetime chance right here. So I gotta ask this, man. This is another hot seat question. It's gonna make you think. If Steve Irwin was alive right now, you can ask him one thing. What would it be?
Well, I was friendly with Steve Irwin.
You shut your mouth.
Yeah, I worked with Steve Irwin. You can find, if you go look, I was on Conan O'Brien with Steve Irwin. I was Fox and Friends multiple times with Steve Irwin. I was on Regis and Kathy Lee with Steve Irwin. I was Good Morning, I think it was Good Morning America. We did all sorts of different stuff. So I was providing animals for Steve. And then later on, I was working with Terry and Bindi and then Robert. And one of my guys that I trained went and worked for the Australia Zoo for 7 years and was the fourth person in up at the top. So no, I knew Steve Irwin. So if you probably went and looked up Conan O'Brien, Steve Irwin, Green Anacondas, you'd probably be able to find it. There's a video, and you'll see I'm there with Steve Irwin. I'm his snake handler. And Fox and Friends, Big Alligator, that's Wally. And Steve's playing with that. And Rhino Iguanas, he was playing with a bulldozer. So I knew Steve. So, you know, I would talk to him. So you can ask me about him. I can tell you about him. He was significantly wonderful. And he was one of the best friends of animals, certainly reptiles, because he caused people to pause and have empathy and consider something that the general world has no value for, or the world is terrified of or hates or whatever. And he caused people to be fascinated and to think that maybe that animal isn't what they think. And what really hurts me is when Steve Irwin passed, which was in October, I was set to do he was coming to the States, and he was starting a tour where he was going around with these animals, and I was going to get to be part of this. And it was going to start in Madison Square Garden on New Year's Eve. And I was scheduled to be with, Steve on New Year's Eve in Madison Square Garden with a bunch of my nerd animals, because the nerd animals were the backdrop animals for a bunch of the stuff he was doing. And that was the event, and he died. And, it's heartbreaking, obviously, as you probably can imagine, on a multitude of different levels. And after he passed, I still worked with Bindi and Terry, and they're very wonderful, but it's never going to be the same. Never. It's actually heartbreaking,
Right.
So what would I ask Steve? I'd ask Steve to what would I ask him? I would ask Steve how he thinks we can save this planet's animals.
I love that.
How can we get people to, for once, step aside from all of their own self-interest and think that we need to share this planet with these other animals, because these animals are all going away. They're going away so quickly, and it saddens me to hear myself say that. And it's like, if you look at the biomass of the planet, which is now humans and our domesticated animals that we keep and breed to consume. Historically, if you look when, let's say the 1950s or the beginning of the 1900s, if you looked at the biomass of the planet, humans were small. The biomass was massive, all these other animals. We have now replaced all that, and now all the wild animals are the little percentage. That is unbelievable. Derek, here, I'll give you one really sad thing. In the 1950s, the amount of life in the ocean, the existence, the biomass of the life in the ocean in the 1950s, there is now roughly 4% of that biomass left in the ocean. We have taken 95, 96% of that biomass out of the ocean. I can't wrap my brain around that. That's not very long. And there's way more of us. And now we have industrialized fishing. So I do get I always have to interject these things because it is my job to get people to think. I want to, shake them up a little bit, I guess. Right. I'm a doggy downer.
I love it. No, that's cool. I love it. This is a one in a lifetime opportunity. So I love it. I love what you're doing. You gave us an amazing hour. I appreciate you. I want to ask, Nerd being just so amazing, where would you like Nerd to be at in the next 5 years?
Things have really changed with COVID. It's very so when you interview somebody can they can tell you like the best version of themselves, and it's not necessarily truthful. And we can always be forever positive. I'm not that. I'm forever having to check myself at the door in my ego. I would have loved to have like a zoo, a reptile zoo. But I guess I have to think about it like this. As a business owner, anything that I want to do, you're only as strong as your weakest brick, right? In your foundation. And your foundation ultimately is probably your employees. And to build a foundation, to build a tower on a foundation with at the present day where some of my employees, I have really good, strong employees, and then I have mediocre employees, and then I have employees that I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. And how do you build your business on that foundation with COVID and all the problems, the work ethics, the pride, the ability to solve a problem? And we're really challenged. I'm challenged to get good staff. And with that being said, I cannot envision myself doing anything bigger than I'm doing now if I am forever challenged. If I could just go like this, somebody would come along and make a zoo for me and have me come in there and run the animals of their zoo. I would be perfect for somebody that's rich who wants, Kevin, I'm going to give you all of this, make my animals awesome and make my zoo awesome and do something that other zoos don't do. That would be the dream. Where will I be in 5 years? I will shrink down my collection. I have my property. I have my building. I am focused on very rare, unusual animals, hard to breed animals. I want to have less animals. I want to be less industrialized at breeding, say ball pythons, reticulated pythons. I want to make the rare, crazy looking stuff. I want to make, the white water monitors, the, orange water monitors, these amazing animals that I so love and dedicate myself to. I want to make the stuff that doesn't exist, that causes people to go, I cannot believe that animal's alive. And I can't believe it's real. So I want to continue taking the animals that other people might not see the uniqueness of or the species, and bring those animals front and center. And I will do that. But for me to do that, I need to have less ball pythons. I need to have less reticulated pythons. I need to have less of the more common stuff. And I need to expand on the rare, unique animals. And also, I'm very much into caging and different ideas of caging. I have very, very different ideas about methodology of systems to keep animals, and I want to do more of that. I love to invent products. I have all sorts of like little weird reptile inventions that I would love to bring to market front and center. I have a very progressive mind, and I have a very hyperactive mind. I don't sleep well because my brain's always going. So I would love to be able to bring to fruition some of my ideas. I would love to be able to get the time to write some of my books. I need to update my ball python stuff. I would actually like to do a book on socialization of reptiles, and maybe a book mirroring some of the large pythons, but certainly water monitors and predatory lizards and the mindsets of them. So how about all that I want to do in 5 years?
You're gonna do that plus some.
Well, we'll see about that.
Well, Mr. Kevin, I just want to say thank you, man. I told you we're gonna do a good hour, man. You gave us an amazing hour.
So Derek, remember, I'll do, if you want to bring me back, I'll do more. So I have once I make like a connection with you, and I enjoy you smiling, and you're very just, sincere, and I love that. So that means I like you. So you can bring me back. It's not like, I don't care if you keep one leopard gecko. If I make a connection with you and I value my time with you, you'll get me, no problem. So, buddy, you have me, even if you want to bring me in as a problem solver. I don't know if, have you seen my connection with Dingo?
I did see that.
And I've just made myself, a lifelong great friend. He and I are like kindred spirits, and all that. And I was brought in because of the community recognizing Dingo had a problem with an animal. They pointed Dingo to me. They reached out to me. They brought me to him. I didn't have a clue what was going on, and they brought us together. And he was just he has a wonderful soul to him, and that created a connection. And now, Dingo and I are doing these little live feeds. We're doing like pretty much every Monday, we're doing these live things. And what it is just lets people see what he and I feel like talking about. We don't really have any plans, and it's wonderful because we're a community. And, the whole US ARC thing, and, we need to band together. And that means red-eye tree frog keepers need to align themselves with reticulated python keepers and realize that we're all together, and we collectively have to share a common voice, because the common voice, certainly with, US ARC, is what gives us the strength to fight these laws, because the laws are really coming. And you can easily bring me in for all the legislative type stuff.
I plan on it. I plan on it.
I have a long history with, working with the attorneys and formulating, arguments, just working with US ARC, and US ARC valuing my expertise to the point that we take my information and then prepare it with an attorney. That's that's a huge compliment that they, would have that kind of faith in me.
You're a walking icon.
Well, you're very kind.
I love it, man. again, but before we go out of here, man, I just want to say I appreciate you. Maybe down, not even maybe down the road, man. I would love to just reconnect. Maybe do like a double podcast, you and somebody else. Just amazing to just keep picking your
Derek,
brain,
you can
because this was kind of like, let's do it right now. You know,
Derek,
like,
you can do whatever you want. If you really wanted to, you know, you pick who you want. Obviously, you know, I pretty much, there's, you know, I like quite a few people. There's some people I don't like at all.
Yeah.
And I don't have any, you know, any regard for, and I just wouldn't find that, you know, particularly pleasant. But I don't think you would ever do that, because the people I don't like are pretty much rightfully, you know, they get my disdain. And but obviously there's people that I have great respect for, and you know, you could easily, you know, put me on with Brian Barchak or whoever the hell you want to do, and Brian and I we'll eat your hour into 2 hours like nothing.
I love it, man. Amazing podcast.
I think you probably want to ask your audience.
Who do y'all think we should get? We should get Big Kev up here with. There are some
people that don't think like me, maybe don't like me, or don't even really regard me, and maybe it's one of them. I don't know. But that's up to you. Whatever you feel like doing, because I can hold my own.
All right, we're gonna do some big stuff, man. I appreciate you for coming on. We did an amazing hour. I'm gonna let you get back to what you were doing. You have
playing guitar, right?
You have an amazing night, sir. Thank you so much.
Derek, it was really great meeting you, and you're a good man. Thank you.
I love it. Before we get out of here, man, that was an amazing hour. You know, he's like, let's go right now. We go right now. We did an amazing podcast. Definitely going to get him on in the future, because he has so much knowledge. I'm going to try to see if I can hook, you know, Kevin and Barchek up, or Kevin and Jay. You know, be just real iconic, man. He's a walk-in library, man. So amazing podcast. Before we get out of here, please make sure you go check out Redline Science, The Reptile Report, Venom Proof Cages, Ozzy Boyds, just amazing supporters of the channel. Until next time, man. When we get our next podcast, y'all make sure y'all tune in. You never know who we're gonna bring. So shout out to Iron Dog, My Animal House, Kurtwood, Ball Python Love, Benji, Nikki, Robbie, Gary, everybody in the chat, man. TNT, J&G Reptiles, KY, Moon Over Miami. Everybody, y'all go subscribe to them great people. Until next time, this is Big Reptile Talk, and we out of here.
You don't start things and not finish them. You don't quit. There's nothing that comes out of quitting besides knowing that you didn't finish. We finish everything. You start it, finish it. If you're going to do it to try to be the best. Not to be better than other people, but to be the best for you. You grind hard so you can play hard. The work you put in will pay off. It could be a year, it could be 30 years, but you keep grinding. Welcome to Big Reptile Talk.